Hey you, I'm Andrew Seaman. Do you want a new job? Or do you want to move forward in your career? Well, you should listen to my weekly show called Get Hired with Andrew Seaman. We talk about it all, and it's waiting for you, yes you, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, before we get started, I wanted to let you know about a live conversation the Next Big Idea Club is hosting next week with the one and only Yuval Noah Harari, historian and author of mega bestsellers like Sapiens and Homo Deus. He'll be talking with us about his latest book, Nexus, A Brief History of Information Networks from the Stone Age to AI. If you'll be in New York City, join us live on September 11th. Otherwise, tune in for the live stream. For more details and to get tickets, go to nextbigideaclub.com/events. Now, on with the show.
LinkedIn presents.
Strategic thinking at its core is about the set of mental capabilities that leaders have to recognize emerging threats and opportunities, set the right priorities, and mobilize their organizations to go after them. It's not an accident that the initials for those three things, recognize, prioritize, mobilize, are RPM, because indeed it's a cycle, and it's a cycle that you need to be able to go around quicker than your competitors.
Hey everyone, it's Monday. I'm your host, Michael Kovnat, and this is the Next Big Idea Daily, the show that gives you quick insights from the latest nonfiction books, making it effortless for you to get smarter while sipping your morning coffee. Just make sure you click follow in your podcast player to get our future episodes and sign up for our Book of the Day newsletter using the link in the episode notes. Now, what if there were a recipe book for success? What if mastering only a handful of skills would make you and your business unstoppable? In the book, The 6 Disciplines of Strategic Thinking, Leading Your Organization into the Future, Michael Watkins delves into the essential practices that can prepare leaders and their teams for tomorrow's challenges. Michael is a professor of leadership and organizational change at the IMD Business School and a co-founder of Genesis Advisors. Here he is to share his big ideas.
Strategic thinking is the most important skill for leaders today. And it's therefore something that every leader should be focusing on developing. Now, why is this the case? Because the businesses I'm working with these days, and I think every business out there, is facing absolutely unprecedented challenges with technology development, supply chain issues, economic uncertainty, and political instability. And it's therefore the case that you need to cultivate strategic thinking in order to navigate your way through the turbulence. To give you an example, I'm working these days with a large US-based healthcare company that is grappling, as many organizations are, with the AI revolution. And it's not just about the state of AI today, it's about where's it going to go and how quickly is it going to go there. So there's a real need to be thinking strategically and dynamically about the future evolution of artificial intelligence. And that's just simply one example of many. So as you think about developing yourself as a leader, recognize that building your strategic thinking capability is, I believe, the most important work you need to do today. It's really important to be very precise about what strategic thinking is. Because if we're not precise, we have no hope of assessing people's strategic thinking capability or developing it. When I was doing the research for the book, I interviewed many people, experienced leaders, HR executives, and the first question I asked them is, what is strategic thinking? And their initial responses boiled down to basically, well, I know it when I see it. And that's not really good enough, because without a deeper understanding of strategic thinking, we can't really hope to do the work necessary to develop it. So I really dug in and thought hard about, how do we think about what strategic thinking is? And what I developed was an idea that strategic thinking at its core is about the set of mental capabilities that leaders have to recognize emerging threats and opportunities, set the right priorities, and mobilize their organizations to go after them. It's not an accident that the initials for those three things, recognize, prioritize, mobilize, are RPM, because indeed it's a cycle, and it's a cycle that you need to be able to go around quicker than your competitors. So as you think about strategic thinking going forward, think about it in those terms. Think about it as, how do I recognize emerging threats and opportunities? How do I prioritize the right ones, see the signal and not focus on the noise? And how do I do the work necessary to mobilize my organization to rapidly deal with them? Strategic thinking consists of a distinct set of 6 mental disciplines. The first 3 of those disciplines, pattern recognition, systems analysis, and mental agility, form the foundation of what you need to do in order to recognize and prioritize emerging threats and opportunities. Pattern recognition is the ability to see what's really important in the midst of a complex, uncertain, sometimes rapidly changing environment. To really see what matters and to be able to focus the attention of others on what really matters. Systems analysis is a related ability to build mental models that take very complicated situations, domains, environments in business, and simplify them in a way that you can make sense of the interactions in a very essential way. It lets you realize that if you make a change over here, it's likely to have an impact over there and may set up a feedback loop over here. And finally, mental agility consists of really 2 somewhat distinct but related capacities. The first is what I think of as level shifting ability. A CEO I worked with called it cloud to ground thinking, but it's the ability to move from the high level 50,000 foot view of things down into the detail and back up again. And critically, it's the ability to be intentional in doing that, to know what altitude you really need to be flying at. The related second mental agility capability is what you might think of as the game playing or chess master skill of understanding move and counter move, looking out a few moves, understanding what your competitors and other key stakeholders might do, and based on that, plan the right sequence of things to move forward. The other 3 mental disciplines are the foundation of what it takes to mobilize your organization to move forward powerfully. The first of these is structured problem solving. This is about helping your team frame and solve complicated problems in the right way and come to agreement about the right pathway forward. Then there's visioning, which is often recognized as an important part of strategic thinking, but there's a little bit of a twist here. Visioning, of course, is the ability to look forward and imagine futures that are inspiring, but also potentially realistic and achievable, and then work backwards from there to, okay, what do we need to do to move the organization forward in that direction? The twist is that you need to do that in a way that's powerful and simple. I talk in that particular chapter about the idea of powerful simplification as a core necessity, really, right, for communicating in order to align the energy of your organization and mobilize people to go forward. The final discipline, which may be somewhat surprising, and I'll talk about a bit more in a couple minutes, is political savvy. And this is the capacity really to understand the stakeholder environments that you operate in, their political realities, and craft strategies, right, to build the supportive alliances that you need to move forward. Together, those 6 disciplines are the tools, the disciplines, the ways of thinking you need to recognize what's most important, set the right priorities, and mobilize your organization to move forward. Political savvy is an essential discipline of strategic thinking. I should say that it's not, usual that people sort of bundle strategic thinking with political savvy, but I'm going to make the case that it really is pretty essential. Because in the end, in order to implement any strategy, you need to build supportive alliances with key stakeholders, and doing so requires political savvy. When people conventionally think about political savvy, the first thing they usually think about is emotional intelligence, right? The ability to understand what people care about, right? To empathize perhaps with that, to craft bargains, deals, right? That address some of those key needs. And there's no question that EQ is an essential part of that package of capabilities. But there's also a really important strategic element to this. For many years, I taught negotiation and diplomacy at Harvard, and in the process helped develop a school of thinking about politics and negotiation and alliance building that at its core is strategic in its nature. To give you an example, right, if you're trying to build support for an important initiative, what's the right sequence of people to talk to move that forward with the most momentum? Because we know that there's what's known as path dependence when you're trying to influence people. And if you talk to this person first before talking to that person, you may well amplify your ability to convince them to support you. Whereas if you do it in the opposite order, it may not work particularly well at all. That's just a simple example. We call it sequencing strategy. But there are other key elements that I go into in this chapter of the book that really put strategic thinking about politics at the core of this particular discipline. And in doing so, I think will help arm you for the almost inevitable challenge you're going to face of needing to build supportive alliances to move forward with virtually anything you want to do that comes from the strategic thinking you've done previously about recognizing and prioritizing emerging challenges and opportunities. My fifth, final, and I think arguably most important insight is that strategic thinking is a learnable skill. This work wouldn't be very helpful if the answer was you have it or you don't. But the good news is that based on my observations and research, there's much you can do to improve your strategic thinking skill. Now, the way I sort of think about it is similar to a marathon runner, right? There unquestionably is an important element of endowment, right? The mental machinery you're born with and that you work with over time in your early formative years, and by the time perhaps you're in your early 20s, is to a significant degree set. Although there's good research about neuroplasticity that feeds into this work and that I think is very encouraging. But like a marathon runner, right, you may well be born with the right lungs, the right muscle tissue, the right strength to body weight ratio. But unless you do the hard work of training on an ongoing basis, you're never going to be a world-class marathoner. And so too is it, I believe, with strategic thinking. The way I've developed a strategic thinking capability equation consists of the sum of your endowment, those early experiences that have shaped you and your strategic thinking capability, but this critical element of exercise. And when I discuss exercise, it's very much like the sort of exercise you do as part of a physical fitness routine. Think of it as a mental fitness routine that you need to undertake. Like physical fitness, it needs to be something you can do relatively simply on an ongoing basis, if not every day, a few days a week. And it consists of a simple set of exercises, at least in part, that you can incorporate into your daily routine. I'll give you a couple of quick examples of this, right? One quick example is what's known as the architect's exercise. The architect's exercise, which I talk about in the chapter on visioning, involves stepping back when you enter a new space or a new room or a new situation and going to the balcony and saying what works here and what doesn't. If I was going to make some key changes in this situation, what would I do? How would I make them? And hopefully you can see how just going through that really quick mental exercise is a way of helping build up your capacity for imagination and visioning. A second example is related to the idea of the cloud to ground thinking dimension of mental agility. Here, the exercise you can do is to try to move yourself self-consciously when you're in a meeting, for example, between being down in the detail, right, on the dance floor, as it were, as opposed to stepping back and going to the balcony and taking a look at what's happening from a higher level. And so literally you can begin to do the work of intentionally moving yourself between levels of analysis.
Thank you, Michael. All right, listeners, you can get a copy of The 6 Disciplines of Strategic Thinking wherever you get your books. And wherever you are on your career journey, we've got something for you at the Next Big Idea Club. From a curated hardback subscription service to an inspirational app, master classes, and live networking events. Check it all out at nextbigideaclub.com and use the code DAILY to get a special discount. I'm Michael Kovnat. See you tomorrow.